welcome everyone to this session of Corridor Conversations. We're really excited about having Cheryl Harrington here with us today to get us launched on our holiday baking, or any baking questions you actually have. She's willing to take questions. I'm Lisa Walker. I chair the Hyattsville Aging in Place Board. This is an online series we started with the other villages along along Route 1 corridor, including Helping Hands University Park, Neighbors Helping Neighbors College Park, and Explorations in Aging College Park. What we wanted to do was to bring the people, the culture, the excitement, the creativity of Route 1 to the people in the area. And we do advertise these beyond the Hyattsville Route 1 area. In a moment, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Cheryl, who will do a particular recipe today and then some tips for baking. I also want to say that we're really excited about having support for these programs from Anacostia Trails Heritage Area and Maryland Milestones. They're very interested in the Route 1 corridor and the heritage of the corridor, and we're pleased to provide us a small grant for this. And the last thing is Cheryl has agreed to take questions of any kind, I guess, about baking. So if you'll submit those questions through the chat function, Jean Venus, who's vice chair of Hyattsville Aging in Place, will be rounding those up at the end of Cheryl's presentation and presenting those questions. So we're really excited to have Cheryl here with us today to give us tips on holiday baking. She's been baking since she was a kid at her parents' bakery in Mattapan, Massachusetts, learning tips from her grandmother, and she's been baking cakes, pies, cookies, and designing wedding cakes ever since. After graduating from Howard University with degrees in zoology and biology, she's continued baking at home for friends and family, and as a stay-at-home mom, her baking supported family and friends through important and critical life events. She's worked at Park and Planning, also in the Bi-County area. She's lobbied Annapolis, and you may know her because she was legislative aide for County Councilman Peter Shapiro, District 2, when he held that seat. With everyone telling her that she should open a bakery, in 2011 she did. A Shortcake Bakery was born with its wonderful array of cookies, cakes, bread, and savories. My favorite, the meat pies. Now she's also hosting Sunday brunches and special events. Shortcake has also brought a wonderful venue for meetings over coffee and sweets, or for picking up something quickly for dessert. She's going to help us with our holiday baking with a special recipe from her childhood home in New England, the Nantucket Cranberry Pie, and we'll have tips. It's too bad this isn't in person because we could taste it, but let's welcome Cheryl. And Cheryl, I'm turning the microphone over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Carter. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm so happy to see some of my regular customers. Some of you have been coming here for quite some time and quite regularly. Thank you again for supporting me in this venture. As Lisa said, I've been baking all my life. I've always enjoyed baking. Started out as a toddler next to my grandmother, who's in her house, Saturday was bread baking day. So every Saturday we made bread for the week, and I always enjoyed standing, watching her and see how she worked her magic to provide the family with bread. Then my family moved to Massachusetts, and my parents opened a bakery. I worked in the bakery for many years. It was hard work, and when I left for college, I said, goodbye bakery, I'm done. Because it is very labor intensive, and I never, ever, ever thought that I would open a bakery. However, throughout college and my years as a young mother, I continued baking. Baking was always my side hustle. And after my sons were in about 12 and 13, I went back to work. However, after a stressful day at work, I found myself often returning to baking because it relieved the pressure. So home in the evening, I would turn on some Motown, get out my ingredients and start baking. And I felt so much better. And of course, there was always something nice to eat at the end. So that made it doubly good. Anyway, a lot of friends said, yeah, you should open a bakery. You should open a bakery. Then, realizing how much work it was, I thought, I don't know about that. But in 2011, when my youngest son graduated from college, the topic came up again. And the whole family was really supportive. They're like, yeah, Mom, you supported us through whatever. We'll support you in this. So actually, I made them keep their word. My husband is here supporting me today. My sons, Stephen and Christopher, are often here helping out. So it really has turned into a family thing. And I enjoy baking. I've done this now for 10 years. I still love baking. To me, I call it magic, in that you can take some basic ingredients and just vary a little bit what you do with those ingredients and end up with so many different types of product. Every day I come in here, I'm still happy, I'm still grateful, I'm still thankful that I've been able to do this. So that said, today I am sharing with you a recipe. It's for Nantucket Cranberry Pie. Growing up in Trinidad, there were no cranberries. When we got to New England and my family discovered cranberries, we fell in love with cranberries and could figure out so many ways to use it. And my parents came upon this recipe and we kind of tinkered with it a little bit. And now we have our version of Nantucket Cranberry Pie. It's very popular here at the bakery. It is a seasonal item because we try to bake with ingredients that are seasonal. So oftentimes you will not find Nantucket Cranberry Pie at the bakery in the summer. This being early fall and cranberries are plentiful, we have reintroduced Nantucket Cranberry Pie. Now, I don't know how detailed you are as an audience, but I remember when I would watch baking shows on television, dating myself, but Natalie Dupree way back in the 80s. And I would always have a pen and paper at my side, writing down ingredients, tips, and whatever I could find, just scraps of paper. I mean, there was a family joke that there were just so many scraps of paper with recipes around the house. So I am going to give you quantities before I begin. That way, if you're interested in recreating this recipe at home, you'll have the ingredients. Okay, so the highlight is cranberries, 2 cups of fresh cranberries, 1.5 cups of sugar, 1/3 cup of walnuts. This is optional, and I do not use walnuts in the Nantucket pie that I make at the bakery, only because of nut allergies and things like that. 2 eggs, 1 cup of flour, and 1.5 sticks of melted butter. And those are the ingredients. The pie will be baked at 325 degrees, and you would use a 9-inch, I use a cake pan. And the thing I would say about making Nantucket cranberry pie, there are cranberries at the bottom and you're mixing it with sugar. So what does that mean? Jelly and toffee and things that stick, and which makes it difficult to get the Nantucket out of the pan. So I would say grease, 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 flour, no, not flour, just a lot of grease to be sure that once you're done, you can actually remove your creation from the pan. Anyway, and this recipe is also a little different in that if you bake, you might be familiar when you do cakes using the creaming method, which is normally mixing your butter and sugar and beating it until it becomes light and creamy. This recipe varies a little bit in that you mix your eggs with your sugar. So off camera, before we began, I mixed my eggs and sugar, whip it until it becomes light yellow. And I am going to show you an example of what that looks like. Okay. So here you have just the eggs and the sugar that went through my KitchenAid for about 5 minutes. And if you notice, it's a very pale yellow. It's thick, and if it drops, it kind of stays in one place. So that's the consistency that you want to begin with. So this is your egg and sugar that's been whipped. Once that is completed, you add the flour to it. And that's another twist on this recipe, in that the butter is added almost towards the end of the recipe. So I will add my flour. Okay. A lot of recipes say sifted flour, but flour today tends not to be as lumpy as it used to be in the past. So it may not be necessary to sift. I was talking with a customer the other day, and we mentioned King Arthur flour, which is really, it's a dream to work with. There's never any lumps, and to me, you just get a better product. So I would say when you bake at home, use the best products that you can possibly find. Anyway, so now we've added the flour to the eggs and the sugar, and you fold it in. And folding is normally you cut down and you flip it over. And the reason you're folding as opposed to vigorously mixing, you don't want to deflate all that wonderful air that you've whipped into the batter so far. Because the other unusual thing about this recipe, no leavening, no baking powder, no baking soda, anything like that. The air that was whipped into your eggs and sugar is what's going to cause your cake to rise. So there you have it. It's what it looks like. All right. So once you've done that, then you add your melted butter. Okay. And we're talking about a stick and a half of melted butter. So just dump it all in there. Excuse me. And then you stir your butter in. And it comes together very quickly, very easily. You want to be sure that the butter is completely stirred in, and it is a homogeneous mixture. Add a little bit of vanilla, and there you have it. It's done. That's the end of it. What I didn't do before was show you the greasing of the pan. Again, that is really important, that you put a lot of grease in the pan, a lot of oil, a lot of spray, or whatever you're using. And normally you sprinkle 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Also, a couple tricks that I've learned over the years, which helps release the pie from the pan, is to try not to get the sugar all the way to the edge of the pan. That way you don't have this the sugar sticking to the sides of the pan. You sprinkle in your cranberries, and here you go. That's what it looks like. Once you're finished, you simply pour that on. Now, normally when we make this at the bakery, this recipe is 10 times larger. we make it in a much larger batch. And so that's sometimes a little challenging. Anyhow, it's a thick batter, so it doesn't self leaven or self level. So you take your spatula and just over the top, kind of push it out to the sides. Okay, make sure the entire pan is covered. A few of the cranberries may come to the top, but that's okay. When you're done, a couple of quick, just to get any extra air out of it. This is what it looks like. You're popping it into a preheated oven, preheated at 325 degrees. And you're baking this for 45 to 50 minutes until it's golden brown on top. Oftentimes it's done, I usually check after about 30 minutes because, you know, oven varies by temperature. Some ovens are a little bit hotter, some are a little bit cooler. So you want to double check after about 30 minutes. And I also normally rotate the pan at that time so it can brown evenly on all sides. And once your time is up, just insert a toothpick into it and you'll get a little bit of cake stuck to the toothpick because of the moisture at the bottom, but then it's done. You let it cool, and I've already prepared a completed Nantucket Cranberry Pie. So I will get that and show you the unmolding of the finished product. Be right back. So, ta-da! Completed Nantucket Cranberry Pie. And again, unmolding is important. So don't let it cool all the way. You want to let it sit for about 10 minutes so it's safe to handle the pan. And then using a flat spatula, just go in around the edges, all the way around, just to free the cake from the pan. And this is where you realize that the importance of all that butter or oil that you placed at the bottom, because that's going to help you release easily. And flip it over. And there you go. Nantucket Cranberry Pie. And let it cool for about an hour or so, and it's ready to cut and eat. I love this around the holidays because as you see all the crimson of the cranberry, looks like little jewels, and you can decorate it with maybe some sort of a greenery, and it looks really nice on anybody's Thanksgiving table. That's it. That's my presentation. If there are any questions, be happy to take them.
What was the measurement for vanilla? Because I think that was not in the list of ingredients.
1 teaspoon of vanilla.
1 teaspoon?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And people are asking actually for the recipe written out. Is that something we can provide? I guess we can easily do that. We would
Absolutely.
send it, Carter would send it out, probably just to whoever attends. Okay, we can figure that out later.
You and you send it out?
Yeah, we can send it out.
Okay,
sure.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, let's see if there's any more specific questions. When would you put the walnuts in if you were using the walnuts?
If you were using the walnuts, I would put the walnuts in once you've mixed the butter and it's a pretty homogeneous mixture. I would add the walnuts at that point.
Okay, all right. Let's see what's here. Any questions?
Jean, I had a question about that mixing tool.
Standard, that's a standard paddle with a KitchenAid. Do you have a KitchenAid?
I do, yes. I have 3 of them.
And Lisa, do you have a KitchenAid? Lisa?
No, I do not. So I'm
Okay,
wondering
'cause
whether that's
Lisa was asking about the paddle that you used when you mix the butter and the eggs. And I'm just saying that I have a KitchenAid and I have that paddle. That's a
Okay.
standard, that's a standard paddle for
Yes. And
the KitchenAid.
a KitchenAid is not absolutely necessary. You can easily do this with a hand blender also. And if you really want to do this, you can either do it with a whisk. Of course, that requires a lot more labor, manual labor, but it can be done with a whisk, definitely a hand mixer or any other type of mixer.
Sure. Let's see, Betty asked, does one have to order one from you or will slices be available over the counter at Shortcake?
We make a smaller version of it and you can, we will have the smaller version available. We used to sell slices of it, but since COVID, we've changed the way that we present our food. We try to package everything. You know, so when a customer comes in, whatever we have is packaged in a bag that you purchase the entire bag. For example, our cookies, we used to sell one cookie, but now we have packages of 3 cookies. We had this weekend a smaller version of the Nantucket Cranberry Pie, maybe a muffin size. And on occasion, I also make muffins, Nantucket Cranberry Pies. So you can get it in a smaller version, but not slices.
Okay. Can you use frozen cranberries?
Yes, yes. You can also use fresh cranberries, but also I get my cranberries in a box of 40 pounds and it's kept in the freezer.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because of all the moisture in the frozen ones when they start defrosting. So
Yeah.
you always, would you blend defrost them and drain them and then?
No, absolutely. I always keep them frozen and add them to the mixture frozen.
Oh, with your 40, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, now
Okay.
that said,
Yeah, that was
once you add them to the mixture becomes really cold and more and thicker, more viscous. So you really have to use that spatula to level out the mixture.
Let's see. Lisa has a question. This is more a general question about holiday baking. I've always have a plan that I will start baking early and then somehow time gets away from me. Any tips?
So do I.
Yeah.
Time constantly getting away from me. The wonderful thing about baking, there's a lot of it that you can prep beforehand. For example, measure ingredients and store them in the refrigerator. Oftentimes, I would measure my dry ingredients, put them in a bag, write on the bag what's in there, the weight and what the recipe is, what I will use that flour for. And that way, once you start baking, everything is pre-measured. And it makes it so much easier because it's more streamlined. You're not stopping to dip flour or measure flour or whatever it is that you need. So if you pre-measure, that's always a good thing. A lot of recipes also you can bake ahead and freeze. When I started the bakery, I made cookies batter every single day. It wasn't long before I realized it's kind of a waste of time to do the same thing every day. So when we make chocolate chip cookies, for instance, it's a recipe that makes 120 cookies. So we bake them, we mix them, scoop them using an ice cream scoop, put them on a tray, and they're in the freezer. So when we need cookies, you go into the freezer, grab however many scoops of cookies you need, put them on your tray. And the beauty of that is you don't even have to wait for them to defrost. You can start baking frozen. Keep in mind though, it might add a couple additional minutes to your baking time. But if you can do that type of prep ahead, then it makes life a lot easier. The other thing is sugar cookies or the decorating cookies that we love to make around the holidays also freezes very well. You can make your recipe, roll it out on a sheet to the thickness that you want, freeze it, and the day you decide to bake, simply take that dough out of the freezer, and it's cold, so it's really easy to cut. You get really precise shapes. You use your cookie cutter, cut them out and bake them.
Great. Sounds good. Good tips. All right, I'm just scrolling through the comments here. Lee Higgins says, this sounds delicious, maybe with some fresh whipped cream to make it really fancy for a holiday dinner.
Absolutely.
Whipped cream could be on anything, and yeah,
Yes,
wonderful.
everything tastes better with whipped cream.
Of course. And then one more question about the nuts. Can you substitute pecans for walnuts? Why not?
Definitely. Yes, you can.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think I covered everything. And someone, who is that? Oh, Lisa says, I want some. She wants it now. I think I got it. Okay, so if you want to continue on, I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. We have somebody raise their hand with a question. I don't see the hand thing. No? Okay.
Hi.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, how are you?
Go ahead. Hi.
Thank you for all this. This is so great and so delicious. It's like 3D, but the taste is missing. But I wanted to say thank you for that. I wanted to ask two questions. I usually make bread, but I make pita bread. And I'm not a baker or anything. I just struggle on how to make it exactly the same size. What would you suggest about that? Because
what would I suggest to have each pita bread come out the same size?
yeah, because
Okay.
when I roll them, I mean, I try to take them and weigh them by my hand, like my mom and my grandma used to do, but somehow it doesn't flow that way. So
Yeah.
I just want to make them the same size, and I always get them looking really weird. I mean,
Yeah.
they taste great, but looking weird.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how those grandparents could eyeball everything? And they came out so, exact. For us, we use a scale. For me now, having a scale and weighing items is just absolutely necessary. As a matter of fact, we don't do cups anymore, a cup of sugar or 10 cups of sugar or whatever. We have a little cheat sheet of what each item weighs. For example, I know that a cup of sugar weighs 7 ounces. So if I need 10 cups of sugar, I simply weigh out 70 ounces of sugar. A cup of flour weighs 5 ounces. So I use my scale. I don't dip multiple times. I just know that I need 50 ounces. That chocolate chip cookie recipe that I talked about takes 120 ounces of flour. So we're constantly weighing things just for consistency, and also to be sure that, that it's as exact as possible. For the pita bread, I would recommend maybe a cookie cutter that you can, if it's a dough that is firm enough, you roll it out and you use a cookie cutter to stamp out this exact size that you want. If it's a dough that's too soft, then you get a sense of what the total weight of the ingredients of the dough is. Decide how many items you want and divide that. So therefore, for example, if your total weight of ingredients is, say, 20 ounces, and you'd like each pita bread to weigh 5 ounces, then you can get 4 out of that. So you just kind of measure it out that way. But definitely, I would say either weight or a cookie cutter. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, you gave me a great idea. And now my other question is, when I make pecan cookies, or I have a hard time finding out, like, because I used to make chocolate cookies too, and chocolate cookies are kind of easy. They spread out, you need to get them out. But with pecan cookies, I always like, are they in there for too long? Did I cook them right? Are they cooked right, or they're not cooked, or did I burn them? And so what would you suggest about that one too? And I'm sorry for too many questions.
No,
and
not at all. No,
Okay,
I
that's
appreciate,
what we're doing.
no, I appreciate your questions. Now, is it a dough that you can scoop with say an ice cream scoop, or is this a rolled dough?
No, it's with like an ice cream scoop, yeah.
Okay,
And I make
okay.
them into like little ball.
okay. The timing, and I think your nose is really an important organ in baking. Oftentimes you detect what a baked cookie smells like. And even if we forgot our timer, you can smell that odor. And I know that's not scientific and that's not precise, but I would say you use all of your senses in determining if something is done. How does it smell? How does it look? In cookies, for example, you never want to bake them until they're firmly set, because in baking, there's something called carryover heat. Once you take that item out of the oven, there's enough heat in that item that even after it comes out for a couple minutes, it continues to cook. So oftentimes with cookies, you want to get them while the edges are firm, but there's still some softness in the middle. And put them on your table or wherever for about 5 minutes, and you'll notice that it begins to firm up and hold together.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks for the questions. Two people are offering the black walnuts that are falling from their black walnut tree in their yard, trees in their yard. Leah Wolf and Cheryl Mayo both have thousands of them apparently. So if anybody wants black walnuts, contact those people. Okay, that's it so far. If you want to continue on, Cheryl, with your presentation, and we'll wait for the next questions to come.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then we can talk a little bit also about continuing the conversation about prepping ahead for holiday baking.
Okay.
Again, there's so many types of recipes that you can bake ahead, because the holidays are kind of frantic anyway. So as much as you can make ahead, then that makes life just a little bit easier. And I would say read your recipe. And oftentimes there's, at some point, it seems like a logical stopping point where you say, hey, I can stop right here and continue this another day. So if you can get most of your prep to that point, and then again, continue. We found that things move a lot smoothly if we're not mixing and baking at the same time. It's one of the lessons I learned. I used to mix and bake and things would get really hectic. But I found out that if you do your mixing one day or the morning and set all your baking aside for the afternoon, except for the obvious recipe that requires you to bake right away. For example, a cake, you're not gonna hold that over, because once you add your leavening to that cake, it starts rising. And if you don't bake it off at that point, you're gonna end up with a flat cake. But most recipes have some sort of a natural stopping point.
We've got a few more questions. How can my chocolate chip cookies turn out softer? What makes them hard?
What makes them hard?
That's a good question.
Sometimes adding an extra egg yolk will give you a chewier cookie. So the recipe may call for 3 eggs. You know, if you added an extra yolk, not the whites, just the yolk of the egg, then that tends to give you a little bit more chewiness to your cookies, as opposed to having a brittle cookie.
Okay.
It could also be, how long are you baking them? Are you leaving them in the oven too long? A little cheat sheet for you. I don't know if you're fans of the Food Network. I used to be a long time ago, And there was one presenter in particular that I really enjoyed watching, Alton Brown. And he actually has 3 recipes for chocolate cookies on the Food Network side. It's the soft, the chewy, and the, I don't know, the crunchy might be the 3rd one. And it's just about a little bit of science, how varying one ingredient can change the final product. And if you have I don't know, sometime, maybe you can check out that website.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Let's go to bread. Deborah Kushner, Cheryl mentioned the weekly bread baking. That's something I'm hoping to start. Does she have a nice bread recipe? Do you have a nice bread recipe to share?
I love Julia Child's recipes. I think they're a classic. Another thing, when I first opened the bakery, we made bread regularly. It was a big deal. Monday, we had rye. Tuesday, whole wheat. No bread on Wednesday. We made something else on Thursday and challah on Friday. I think I remember Carter coming in a couple of times to get
We used to get it
challah.
regularly.
Yeah. We kind of got away from that. Bread is really time consuming, but I don't know, I feel like it's so rewarding when you make a loaf of bread, you know. But my favorite recipe is, Julia Child has a recipe for just white bread. I'd be happy to share that also, if anyone is interested.
Okay, maybe we can put together a little package of recipes and comments and things. Let's see, here's a compliment. I have a KitchenAid and I love it. I got some of this cranberry pie for my daughter's family and they loved it. That's from Betty, and I'm gonna mispronounce your last name. Benning? I don't, yeah, sorry, B-U-E-N-I-N-G.
It's Benning, the U
Benning,
is silent.
Thank you. Betty,
It
Betty,
looks weird, but it's the U silent.
thank you. Okay, that was very nice. Let's see.
Did you say you got a Nantucket pie today?
Nope, I got it right after we moved here. I got it one weekend to take to Amy and Kevin, and they loved it.
Thank you, Betty.
Some of them don't like really sweet things, so it was just the right amount of sweet and tart.
Yeah.
Betty's
Yeah.
also asking, did your grandmother measure things? Mine did not, and got mad at me when I asked her to measure to learn how to bake her bread and hot rolls.
She did not. I am not even
Yeah.
sure if she owned a measuring. The cup of her hand.
Right, yeah,
She would say, it looks like this, and point her hand to you. And you had to, take note of how much salt was in there, how much baking powder or whatever. Yeah. Actually, no, I don't think my grandmother owned a measuring. When she measured something, it was with a regular teacup. Yeah.
okay. Oh, all right, let's see, I got some more here. This is from Carter. I had a friend whose go-to cookie hack was doubling the butter, no matter what. Okay, and what was the outcome? Just more butter, just must taste much better, right, Carter? I guess it's not.
What was the outcome?
I don't know, he's not in, maybe he's not there.
Sorry, I was having problems with mute. Yeah,
Oh,
they
sorry.
tended to be thinner cookies, but they tended to work out pretty, they were tasty.
Yeah, how could they not be tasty? Yeah, or
Yeah,
tastier.
really.
Yeah, right. Do you take volunteers for a slice of pie? Not quite sure what that means. Maybe for testing. I don't,
That was me. I wanted to come and volunteer for a piece of pie. It looks so good.
We've had volunteers on occasion, yes. We've definitely, oftentimes when we try a new recipe, I am looking for volunteers for feedback, so stay tuned.
That's cool. That'd be a nice little bonus. Okay, let's see. Now you have to go out and come back and see if there are new messages here. I remember you used to sell a delicious white bread years ago. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes, yes. I love that bread. Actually, that's the recipe that I referred to earlier. That's the Julia Child recipe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let's, Betty Dickerson wants to change the topic for a moment and ask, well, she just mentioned she loves your soups and your chowders. And I'll just say that your quiches are incredible. Whatever you did for the HAP event, whenever that was, a year ago, I've already forgotten. Those quiches were really delicious. Okay, can you talk about savory cooking a bit? Do you have difficult techniques or suggestions for, not difficult, different techniques or suggestions for working with quiches or patties?
Savory cooking is.
Want me to read it again? Can you talk about savory cooking a bit? And do
Yeah,
you have
sure.
different techniques? Go ahead,
Absolutely.
start with that.
It's a lot more forgiving than baking. You know, oftentimes if you forget an ingredient in cooking savory, you can add it out of order and it doesn't, you know, affect the recipe in any meaningful way. The opposite of baking, it's very regimented. You add what you're supposed to add when you're supposed to add it. So I actually prefer baking, but I also enjoy savory, making savory items. We are hoping to get back to soups as the weather gets a little bit cooler.
Great.
You know, my general philosophy on cooking or baking is you kind of get out of it what you put into it. Always use good ingredients, make sure your ingredients are fresh. It breaks my heart sometimes that we have to throw things out, but if it's been sitting around too long, then you know that it's going to affect your final product. So yeah, we end up throwing not quite a bit. I think we're kind of miserly. I am anyway, as far as using things. So I try not to let a whole lot of things go to waste. And I try to use whatever ingredient I'm using at its optimum, you know, where it's peak of ripeness of flavor, et cetera. And that's kind of the reason we don't bake out of season. This time of the year, I get so many requests for strawberry shortcake. And strawberries are just not in season. You know, I've had people say, well, I see them at the supermarket. Yeah, you do, but they don't really taste that good. So why even, you know, try to use them at that point? Just kind of put it on hold and wait until spring and strawberry shortcakes will be back.
Okay, Karen Brown says, and your oat scones are the best I've ever had anywhere in the world. Truly spectacular. Hi, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Oat scones are still my favorite thing. I believe for the first 4 years I had this bakery, I ate an oat scone every single day with a cup of coffee. It's
You had to be sure that they were good, right?
yeah, that's
I mean, you
what
wouldn't want to selling any meat.
That was my excuse. Yeah, but yeah, there's nothing like a good scone. Thank you, Karen.
Are they difficult to make? Lisa's always wanted to try them.
Not necessarily difficult. They're a little bit finicky. I would say if you want to, then yeah, definitely try it. And one of the cheats that we use is we use butter. There's so many alternatives to butter that's available as a baker. You know, everybody, you get a lot of, well, not anymore, but we used to get a lot of salespeople saying, oh, there's this, you can use this, and it tastes just like butter, and you won't, it extends the shelf life of whatever product you're making. But no, nobody's invented anything that's a good substitute for butter. We use butter in our scones, and I think that's part of the reason for that taste. Oatmeal scones are, as I said before, a little picky in that once you add oats to water, it gets really sticky and gummy. So you have to sort of time that just right to prevent your oats from causing your ingredients to become too dense. Oat scones, I don't use a mixer when I make my scones. It's all on hand because the paddle, again, crushes the oats and then it releases a lot of that gooey goodness that you find in oats. So you mix it by hand. That would really be my main suggestion.
Great.
Yeah, for making oats. You put them in at the last minute, again, to prevent the absorption of too much water, and toast your oats before putting them in. Toasting the oats gives it this sort of a nutty flavor that I think comes through in the end.
Okay. Let's see. This is a question, I'm asking this question. Have you given any consideration to offering classes? I think you have. Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was actually our plan for 2020.
Oh.
And then COVID came along.
Uh-huh.
But I guess that doesn't have to mean the end of it because here we are today on Zoom. So there is a possibility of doing some classes on Zoom. I would love to do that.
That'd be great.
Yes.
I think I'll have a lot of takers on that. Yeah.
Baking is my happy place, and I'm always happy to bake, and I'm always happy to share recipes. You know, sometimes people tend to say, oh, it's my recipe, it's my grandmother's recipe, I won't give it away. But having the right recipe is maybe half the battle.
Yeah.
I think knowing the process and understanding what you're doing, why you do it, and when to do it is the other half. In my time here at Shortcake Bakery, I've had a number of bakers. Oh my gosh. And sometimes, well, oftentimes, their interpretation of a recipe came out so very different. So it's not just the recipe, it's the techniques that go along with it. And again, I'm happy to share. One of my dreams is to teach baking. I feel like it's somewhat of a lost art. And there's gonna come a point in time when you don't have enough people who knows how to bake, understand baking, and we're stuck with, big food suppliers to tell us what a baked good looks and tastes like. I would like to do my part to say that should never happen. We should share the skill of baking. That's my preaching for the day.
All right, I don't see any more unless I've missed one. Have I missed anybody's question that they've typed out?
I have one I'm typing.
You're typing it right now? Okay. Why don't you just ask it?
I guess I should because I'm right here. So I have friends who are on keto diets who stay away from carbohydrates, can use lots of butter certainly in cooking, but need to use like almond flour and other kinds of substitutes. And I'm curious whether you've tried that and whether any of you've tried it with any of your recipes, and if you've got any suggestions about it. I mean, one thing that I've tried to do is to make chocolate chip cookies, and and brownies. And the brownies, I've probably made 5 recipes, and all of the recipes are awful. I mean, just awful. I just want to throw them out.
Awful in taste, in texture, or in the way they look?
I think mainly in texture. They are, they're sort of too much of a glop. It's glop, it's not, they're not, I guess because of the flour, it doesn't really set up right.
Yeah.
What kind of flour did you use?
Almond flour.
The almond flour.
I think I used coconut flour in one recipe. Trying to make a brownie for these friends that use that do keto.
Yeah, yeah. It is challenging because the thing that makes flour great and just a wonderful ingredient is the thing that affects a lot of people who have, issues with gluten. That ability to absorb water and expand, which you don't have as much in some of the alternative flours. And that's what oftentimes create that thick, stodgy, sort of heavy product. There are a couple things that and you might be familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the alternative things that you add to sort of create a little bit more leavening and a little bit more flexibility. But it's hard. It's hard. I haven't worked much with keto, and I'm not even sure how that differs, but I have a couple of items that I use almond instead of regular flour. As a matter of fact, this Nantucket Cranberry Pie works quite well with almond flour instead of regular wheat flour.
Wow.
So, you might want to try it. And then there are the flours there's the 1-to-1 conversion. So it's exactly the same amount of flour you would use if you were doing a wheat flour as opposed to an almond flour. So, but if you'd like to try that with the almond flour, I think you might be successful.
Yeah, I will try. Do you change any of the other ingredients for the?
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Okay.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. I think we might have to change the sugar, but for keto. But I could play with that.
You can probably substitute coconut. Yeah. And I need to just double check one thing, and I'll be right back.
Okay. We're moving up to almost 3 o'clock, but we've got time. So, anybody?
I want to add that I did add a tablespoon of xanthium gum.
Okay.
When I made when I substituted the almond flour. Have you used that in your cooking?
I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't. Yeah, I'll look for that. Use other things like, go ahead.
Betty Benning was mentioning maybe trying ground oats instead of white flour. I don't know.
Again, oats tend to hold on to a lot of water and swell as opposed to stretching. So I don't know how that might affect your final product.
Right.
Okay. When will the Nantucket Cranberry Pie be available at the store?
We'll have them when we open on Thursday.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Okay.
From here moving forward until spring, our goal is to have Nantucket Cranberry Pie on a regular basis. Now, we don't make a lot and stock them. So if you can just send us an email if you're interested in getting one to info@shortcakebakery.com, then we can have it prepared and ready for you.
Cool.
Okay. I'm just writing that down. Okay. Here's a long one. This is from Karen Brown again. I love to use flour from small mills. I've ordered from Anson Mills and a few others, but would love to find a local source for wheat, oats, etc. I did buy some whole wheat from Full Cellar Farms, and it was incredible. Very fresh flour makes such a huge difference in taste. And do you ever use rye flour? There's a second.
Not on a regular basis. We used to, as I said earlier, when I first opened, we made a German rye bread, and we use rye flour in that. But on a regular basis, no, we tend to not have as many recipes that call for rye flour.
Okay.
But I love the taste of it.
Yeah. And her first question was about finding local sources for wheat, oats, etc. Any suggestions
Sorry,
there?
repeat the question.
Sure. It was, this is from Karen. I've ordered from Anson Mills and a few others, but would love to find a local source for wheat, oats, etc. Any suggestions on locally where to go shopping for?
I would say I found some unusual flowers at Glut in Mount Rainier. And oftentimes, if you need a larger quantity, if you let them know, they'll order in a larger quantity for you. But other than Glut, not so much.
Yeah.
Okay. How about what type of apples make the best pies? Or what mixture of apples make the best pies?
I'm partial to Granny Smith.
Oh, really?
And for my apples. And a few years ago, maybe, but my son went to school in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Dickinson College. And on our way there, there's an apple farm, Pete's Apples Farm, or Pete's Farm. And we still go there to get our apples directly from them. And I tasted a pink lady and fell in love with that pink lady. It's amazing. It makes a really good apple pie. It holds its shape, and of course it's tart, so it gives a lot of body to it. Normally for my pies, I use at least 2 different types of apples. You want to use something like a pink lady or a Granny Smith that holds its shape, and then something like a Macintosh or something else that is gonna sort of break apart a little bit during your pie baking. So a Mac mixed with a pink lady, or Mac mixed with a Granny Smith, something along those lines. And there's also Golden Delicious, which also bakes up somewhat soft. So mixing that with one of either the pink lady or the Granny Smith is also good.
Great. Okay. All right, let's see here.
If there are no more,
I'm gonna refresh here. Let me just see here.
I don't see any more.
Lynn said thank you for that about the pie, the apples, I should say. I don't see anything new. Anybody may just want to speak up if they want to ask a question?
Or
I'd like
Cheryl,
to
if
make
you-
a comment. In years past, I've had a really challenging time getting rhubarb.
I was thinking about rhubarb. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this year I was able to get a huge, 40 pounds at once,
Wow.
which because of my storage situation, I didn't need that much rhubarb at once. And so we opened it up to customers who wanted to purchase just clean and cut rhubarb. And that was really successful. I was surprised at how many people bought a pound or 5 pounds and even, more than 5 pounds of rhubarb. So of course I started thinking, well, that might be something that we can do in the future. If we have an abundance of an item, then we can definitely open it up, and I'd be happy to resell to local Hyattsville folks.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was growing up, my mother, she was fabulous pie baker, and she had this one rhubarb plant that, that was a big deal when it was ready to harvest, and she'd make incredible rhubarb pie. Yeah, so good memories with rhubarb.
Another underrated ingredient.
Well, a lot of people don't like that hardness and the way it makes your teeth feel, that's all. Let's see, anybody else? No. Okay, who's got a question? Or you want some more? Oh, Karen said something. Okay, Karen, what are you saying? McLeaf's Orchards at Riverdale Farmers Market has a rhubarb every spring.
That's good to know.
Okay.
Good to know.
Good to know. Okay. Are there things that you want to?
We can go ahead and see if Cheryl has any other tips. I certainly love the rhubarb idea, and I guess since it's not in season right now, you're not cooking with it right now, but I'm also one that loves rhubarb. My dad used to raise it, and he was just, he was great. He was he would make like a compote out of it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Actually, a customer, the woman who purchased a huge amount of rhubarb actually brought me some rhubarb jam. And it was more of a compote type of thing, but it was really delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we're still welcoming questions, but I want to thank Cheryl very much. We're at the 3:00, 3:05 hour, and if there are no more questions and no more tips, Cheryl, we can I'll get ready to sign off. I just want to thank everybody for coming today and make sure that you know that we're doing sessions both in November and in January. In November, we've had a change. We will be doing journaling and diaries with Hyattsville author Mary Amato. And on January, which will be fun, she's written a lot and also has some ideas about using your journals and diaries and how she uses them herself. On January 8th, Joe's Movement Emporium, Brooke Kidd, who was here today, I'm not sure if she's still here, will be helping us get through after the holidays, after we've done all our baking, to do some exercise and get ourselves ready for the next season. So those are the two next items that we have. We are doing something on the Lakeland African American community in February. Don't remember the date, maybe Carter does, for Black History Month. And we do monthly corridor conversations. So other ideas for sessions, do send them to us. And Cheryl, do you have some last words you wanna send to people?
Well, I really want to say this has been such a pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. As I've said before, I love sharing knowledge about baking. And if anyone might think of a question tonight, feel free to send an email and we'll definitely respond. Also suggestions on some things that you might like to see at the bakery. As we go into year 10, looking at making some changes. We still have abbreviated hours, and we'll probably keep them for a while. I will share with you that during COVID, we were able to develop some other relationships other than retail. We now wholesale to a couple of other businesses, and we do some catering, and kind of really enjoy doing that. But of course, we will always keep retail as the core of our business. So we're looking to see how do we kind of mesh all of those things together after 10 years? How do we change? I don't know if you're familiar, all of you are familiar with the fact that we do brunch on Sundays also from 11 to 3 in combination with Maryland Meadworks, which is located right next door to Shortcake Bakery. And that's been a lot of fun. So we're looking for ways to, again, branch out. Right now, for the remainder of October, we're doing an Oktoberfest menu. And it's really just sausages and sauerkraut, apple products and things like that. Once October is over, in November, we'll probably go back to a more breakfast-like type of menus. But it's been great, and we've had a lot of support from the community. And I want to say thank you to all of you for continuing to support us so vigorously during pandemic. I appreciate it. Another thing is we were able to keep all of our staff. As a matter of fact, we hired someone else. And my goal is always to hire from within the Hyattsville Arts District area. So I feel real good about that. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that you continue to support us. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Do you have any scones in the shop today? And are you open today?
Actually, we're closed. We opened at 8 this morning and we closed at noon. Who asked that question?
Cheryl Mao. Cheryl Mao.
Oh, okay. We'll be open for brunch tomorrow, and we'll have a few scones on hand. The menu is, in addition to the Oktoberfest, we'll also have quiches.
Great, great. Well, Cheryl, yeah, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Jean, for hosting the pulling together the questions, and Carter for the technology. And Cheryl, I think this was great, so we ought to do it again next time.
Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds
A lot of
good.
people are are saying thank you and what a wonderful session. And
Right,
Yeah.
good.
so that's great.
Awesome.
We'll
Yeah.
send the recipes out that you indicated. I think you were gonna, well, we've got the one recipe, and you were gonna send the recipe for bread, was that right?
For the white
The white
bread,
bread.
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and maybe if you do get other questions, if you could share them with us, we may throw them into our report, the report that we'll put on the website, so that'd be great. Okay,
Definitely.
all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Good to
Bye-bye.
see you.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.